Please welcome everyone, Jodie Fox. So late last year, my father retired after working for 50 years for the same company, which I find absolutely mind-blowing because late last year, I was on my third career change and in my own business. So you might be forgiven for thinking that my dad and I have very, very little in common when it comes to talking about careers and business. But actually, you would be wrong. So on the first day of my dad's career, he got given this little tie bar, and the tie bar had a pair of shoes on it. And he was told that this was to remind him to always put himself in his customers' shoes. And at Shoes of Prey, we are all about getting our customers exactly what they want, when they want it. So this is putting the customer at the heart of everything. Shoes of Prey is the place where women can design their very own shoes. And to date, we've had more than 6 million shoes designed on the site. We started in October 2009, so about 6.5 years. We broke even at 2 months. We hit multi-million revenue in under 2 years. In the last 3 months, we've shipped to over 100 countries. We've raised about $25 million in funding, and that includes working with Nordstrom as one of our retail partners, but also as an investor. And we're currently rolling out stores with them, which has been a lot of fun. And we also vertically integrated building our own manufacturing plant. We use technology to facilitate the solutions that we need to bring to our customers. We don't use technology as the end point. We're constantly talking to our customers and asking them, what is it that you need? Thinking about her, what would make it more seamless for her to get those great shoes that she will love into her closet. Now, seeing that about half of you are men, you are probably not my target audience. So I might just take you quickly through a little bit of the core technology that we've built in-house to have context for the rest of this discussion. So when you go to the website, the core piece of technology is in what we call our 3D designer. So we start you off with just a couple of base shapes because ultimately, and look, I'm a numbers girl, a words girl, not a numbers girl. But I have great people with numbers in the office, and they tell me that we have literally 300,000 trillion possible design outcomes. I'm a little unsure as to whether that's actually even a real number, but there's a lot of them. So we start you off with some simple things, and then you can go through and start experimenting with what it is that you might like to do to the shoe to make it your own. And it's a lot of fun. You can change the heel height, you can change the colors, you can change absolutely every single thing about it to build exactly what you want. So that's a ton of fun. And as I said, we did this in-house, and the key thing about this is that it dynamically visualizes the shoe as you're making each of these changes. Why is that important? Because designers have this amazing ability to know what their end product is going to look like. You and me, you might, but I don't. So dynamically visualizing as I'm picking the elements is really critical to helping people to customize and build their own product. So flicking through, I thought I might introduce you to my co-founders. So on this side is Mike. So they're both Michael. So easy to remember, but they're both tall brunette glasses. I'm really thrilled that Mike grew a beard because now it's easy to explain the two. So Mike is our CTO. His name's Mike Knapp. He started out, we all met in law school. He did law and IT, went on to Google, and was a software engineer at Google for a couple of years out of Shanghai, Sydney, and the Mountain View office. Then we have Michael Fox on the other side, and he started out actually in one of Australia's largest growing retailers. And he was hired by the then CEO to do a graduate program, first time they'd run it, and was taken across the entire business. So his retail operation knowledge was off the charts. He then went over to Google in advertising sales before we started Shoes of Prey. As for myself, I started out as an insolvency litigator, which is kind of brutal. And I found myself absolutely craving something more creative. I moved into advertising, learned about building brands before we came together to build Shoes of Prey. Before we move on to how we started Shoes of Prey and why we did it, you might notice that Michael Fox and I have the same surname. He's not my brother, he's my ex-husband, but that's a totally different speech. But I just thought I'd clear it up because people always ask and it's this awkward moment, and anyway, so now you know. So the way the business came together was that, I had I liked shoes. I'm half Italian. They're like, I should love shoes, but I could never find shoes that I loved. And it was either that the heel was too short, or the color wasn't right, or maybe I didn't like this really naff decoration that was on the shoe. And I kind of didn't get where this obsession with shoes was coming from until I found a cobbler overseas that I could commission my shoe designs with. And then the whole world opened up. So I remember being told where he was, and I had a stopover in Asia, and it was for 4 hours. I ducked out, spent 1.5 hours with him. I designed 14 pairs of shoes in that 1.5 hours. I had the time of my life, sifting through leathers and toe shapes and heel heights. It was so much fun. And then these shoes turned up on my doorstep. And I started wearing these shoes, and my girlfriends were saying to me, oh my God, those shoes are so different. Note, they didn't say beautiful, they said different. And when I explained to them where they'd come from, they asked me to commission shoes for them as well, so I did. Now, I wouldn't have thought to turn it into a business had it not been for Mike and Michael. And they were at Google and starting to see e-commerce really get traction. And they were like, we need to get on board with this, it would be so much fun. But we just need a really great idea. And we'd all just read The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Short read, great concept. And we were sitting on the beach at Christmas time. I know that sounds weird, I'm Australian. So we were sitting on the beach at Christmas time, talking away about business ideas, and these passions formed together, and we started Shoes of Prey. So it's not all glamorous. And I know that we've come a long way since here, but yeah, this is what it looks like. And I came across a quote recently which said, be steady and well-ordered in your life so that you can be fierce and original in your work. And you can see there's a lot of fierce and original going on in this picture. This is actually my 1-bedroom apartment in Sydney. That's what my lounge room looked like, with 8 staff and hundreds of pairs of shoes. And that's in the courtyard. I didn't actually know this photo was being taken. That's me negotiating the lease for our first office. Because as much as I love my team, which we have about 220 in our team now, I just needed to get them to get the hell out of my apartment. But amongst all of this fierce and original, we did find some great free tools that were awesome for us to start to get organized with. And because my 2 co-founders were from Google, we were predisposed to their products. Some of the things that we used to help organize were documents, simple, accessible all around the world. I do a huge amount of travel, and able to collaborate remotely. Hangouts and chat got introduced during the time that we were starting Shoes of Prey, and they were critical for us to keep in touch with each other, and that'll become relevant in a story I'm going to tell you shortly. Right down to YouTube, which we use for sharing visual instructions, replies to customers sometimes, and then also, proving things as well for marketing. So, for example, I kept getting asked if our shoes were comfortable. And I was thinking about making a video where I opened up the shoe and showed all the padding and things like that. But instead what I did was, in Australia, if you ever go and visit, and I know it's a long way away, but I urge you, go visit, it's beautiful. There's a coastline walk that you can do from Bondi to Bronte. And it's this stunning couple of miles where you're just going around the bays there, and it's beautiful. So what I did was I ran that in a pair of 4.5-inch heels. And it was a great, fun way to share this idea that, yes, the shoes actually are comfortable. There were no blisters or anything like that. So we're using a lot of these tools that are free to kind of, back up all these parts of our business that we don't have any budget for. So that's how we got well ordered. And now I'd love to take you through some of the fierce and original work that we're doing. So I guess the thing is that we started out with this idea of believing that customization is exactly what people need and want. And we've been talking about this since the 1970s, when MIT released their paper saying customization is the way of retail in the future. And frankly, it's a lot of years later and we're still figuring this out. Now, I do think customization is relevant, and it comes from things that we sometimes characterize as whinges or first world problems when we're shopping, and I admit they kind of are, but how many times have you heard these statements from yourself or someone else? I couldn't find what I wanted. They didn't have my size, didn't like the color, there's nothing out there that I like, they don't make it anymore, so I can't buy it. So this is where customization becomes interesting, and the real problem, the really big problem that's driving all this, actually lies in manufacturing. So if we go into what we're thinking about with manufacturing in the way that we made in the past, firstly we start out with a cobbler. And I need a new pair of shoes, I'll go visit the cobbler, it'll take a few weeks, I'll pick all the elements, it'll be great. Interestingly enough, when we first started Shoes of Prey, I took the computer down to my nonna and I was hanging out with her back home. I come from a very, very small country town in Australia, and I was like, Nonna, check this out. This is what I'm doing. And she was doing that really polite grandma blank face where she's like, oh, that's nice. And then I was like, she hasn't got it. So I got out all of the swatches and the shoes, and then and then I could see the penny drop, but then she started laughing at me. And I'm like very clearly not laughing with me, laughing at me. And I was like, oh, I'm a bit hurt. And she said to me, oh, Jodie, this is how I used to make my shoes in Sicily. And she's right. We're taking something artisanal, something older, and we're putting it into using technology to make that into something new and accessible and seamless. So in the past, we had to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for our pair of shoes, and then the consumer need changed. I wish I could buy more shoes more quickly. I got a thing on Saturday night. I need shoes faster than 2, 3, 8 weeks or whatever it is. We had the Industrial Revolution, so that today, we produce things in minimum order quantities of thousands upon thousands, and we freight them all over the world, and they sit on shelves so that when you say, I need a pair of shoes, you can go to the shop and pick up a pair. Now that worked for a while, but the consumer need is changing again, and what we're seeing now is I wish I could get exactly what I wanted. I wish it fitted well. I wish it looked the way that I wanted it to, but I can only buy what's on the shelf. So customization takes the best part of each of these phases of manufacturing so that we can give you exactly what you want when you want it. The extension of this thought here is to marry in the data, because my next step that I'm really excited about is to give you what you want when you want it before you know you want it. I want to collect enough data on you so that sounded creepy. I want to get to know you so that I understand the things in advance that you're going to enjoy, because in customization and having 300,000 trillion options, there's certainly an aspect of paralysis of choice with all of these options sitting out there and available. So while we're starting to solve the manufacturing issue that sits behind this, and pardon me, we actually have solved it by building our own factory. So we have a factory where we hacked all of the machinery and worker lines and software to be able to produce one at a time at scale. And we opened that in December 2014, and the vast majority of our shoes are produced in that factory now. And we're implementing our own software and technology that we're building for that to make things more sustainable in that respect. So that's what we want to do there, but I guess as I've talked about, I've touched on technology, I've touched on manufacturing. There are a ton of operational challenges in customization, as I've mentioned, and I just want to pick up on a couple of them now in these sort of moving forward. So one of the first things that happened, and I'm not going to play you a video so of a 16-year-old talking about shoes, I'm just going to tell you about it because that'll be more friendly for all of us. Marketing is a huge challenge as well. And marketing and communication is hard because nobody's thinking, I need a new pair of shoes, I'll just design them. That's not a common way of thinking just yet. So one of our first marketing campaigns was actually with this YouTuber. Her name's Blair Fowler, but she is better known as Juicy Star 07. So if you go looking for her, that's how you look for her. We didn't have any cash. We were bootstrapping from the very beginning, and we were desperate to get attention onto our site. And we started to look for where these funnels of women who loved fashion might be that we didn't have to pay a huge amount for. So traditional advertising was out for us straight away. What we did was actually one of my co-founders who found Blair. She was a 16-year-old makeup how-to guru, and she also was starting to do fashion videos as well. Not sure how the boys found her, but anyway. So we had a look at Blair, and the cool thing about her was that she had 500,000 subscribers on her channel. She was posting videos 3 times a week. They were 10-minute videos, and she was getting way more than 500,000 views on every video. So we knew she had a very engaged audience on these kind of areas that would relate neatly to shoes and designing shoes. So wrote to Blair. I was kind of like, hey Blair, oh my God, I loved your last video on cat eye, amazing. I tried it out, it was so cool. I have this shoe company where you can design your own shoes. You should totally try it out. Would love to do a video with you, kiss kiss. And then 16-year-old Blair's agent writes back, and I'm like, oh, okay. And we start to write and talk about terms. And the agent said, look, Blair only does positive reviews, so which is cool. And she said, so why don't you gift her the experience? If she likes it, then we'll talk about a video. She did like it, thank goodness. And for an amount that I'm contractually obliged to not tell you, but was very, very low and you could afford right now, we engaged Blair to do this video for us. Today, Blair is a lot more expensive. I think she commands something like $25,000 just for a mention in her videos. So, but it wasn't like that then. So we did this video. The idea was that at the end of it, I know she's the businesswoman you really should have speaking today, not me. So at the end of this video, there was a competition where you could go to Shoes of Prey, design a pair of shoes, put it in the comments, and then say where you'd wear them. We pick the 2 best designs and we make them for you as your prize. Now, I was a bit dubious about this because having worked in advertising, I know when you have to go through lots of steps to enter a competition, people drop off pretty significantly. And you know, when you say to me 25 words or less, I'm like, just take my email address. I know that's why we're here. You don't care about my 25 words. So you know, I was a bit dubious and I thought maybe 5,000 entries, but still that was like great reach for us at that point in time. So this was 5 months into starting the business. We'd had 200,000 unique visits to the site. And then when Blair's video went live, we had 500,000 people hit the website that day. And the good news is that we didn't crash. And we didn't crash because Mike Knapp, my CTO and co-founder, we built everything in Google Apps. We had the server backup so that we were solid. We didn't crash and we could keep all that traffic flowing through. Now, the hilarious thing was then we were then on Hangouts with each other and we're like, oh my God, we have traffic. This is so cool. What do we do with traffic? Like, you know, we just heard getting traffic was a good idea. So we decided to then implement share buttons on the website. And the cool thing as well is that we were watching everything in real time on Google Analytics so that we knew what moves to take and what people were doing. So we implemented the share buttons and then we started seeing the website being spread around further, which was great. Then we're on Hangouts again and we're like, hey man, this is so cool. I think the sales chart's probably broken though. So traffic was going like this, sales were staying flat. Can anyone guess why sales were staying flat? Yeah, you got it. What is it? Yeah, 16-year-old girls. Who knew that 16-year-old girls didn't have $220 to spend on a pair of shoes? Like, who knew? And we're like, oh my God. So then we were like, okay, we really should have thought about our target audience first. It's not just that they love fashion and they love makeup and they connect with this idea, it's that they have to be able to buy them as well. And she's kind of, you know, 30, 35, you know, and she's not watching 16-year-olds put makeup on YouTube. She's reading the Wall Street Journal. She's, you know, she's reading Vogue probably. So we had a huge debate about it. And then what we decided to do was that we would write a case study on what we'd just done and publish it and send it out to anyone who would listen to us. And it was pretty risky. Why would you give away the secret sauce? But we also knew that that's the kind of story she would read. So we did that. Woke up in the morning and we had a note back from someone at the Wall Street Journal who wrote a feature story about it. And then we found her. That's when we started to find our target audience. Over the next 3 months, ultimately, this permanently tripled our business. The video had 90,000 entries to the competition. We were the most commented video on YouTube worldwide that day, and till today, I think we're still number 3 in the most commented worldwide video in the how-to and style section. So this was a huge success for us and one that cost very little to do in an amazing platform. Today, I've actually started my own YouTube channel. I think it's mostly my mother watching my videos, but I just talk about lots of what we're doing in business, what's working, what's not working, and obviously asking for brains to help out with that. One of the other things that we've done, weirdly enough, is go offline, which is such a strange thing to talk about when we're talking about innovation and technology. But there were some really innovative things about this store. And what we've successfully done is brought our online store into the offline world. And the reason we did this was not because we thought omnichannel was a sexy word, which it is, but it was because we talked to our customers constantly. And they kept saying to us this thing which was baffling. They were like, what are my shoes going to look like in real life? And I was like, okay, let's go back to the beginning. You design them, then we make them, and then you find out. We both find out. That's how it works. But as we dug into this a little bit more and used that kind of intuition and ourselves in our customers' shoes. And as more and more women just started to turn up to our headquarters randomly, walk into the desks and say, "Hi, I just want to try some shoes on," we realized that she just wanted to know what the shoes felt like on her foot. She just wanted to know what the colors looked like beside each other. She wanted to feel the materials. And so we opened a store. You might notice it doesn't look like a usual store. We opened it in January 2013. And so the first one was in Sydney, and we now have 5 stores with Nordstrom here, with a view to expanding that omni-channel presence here in the US. So we worked with the Australian ballet set designers to create these sculptures of flowers and made out of shoes, because we wanted your imagination to spark as soon as you see this. We're not just about off the shelf. Everything that you touch in the store, we worked with architects for this, is made out of stuff that we make the shoes out of. So every surface is a different kind of leather or material that you're creating with your shoes. There's a bespoke fragrance and a soundtrack that help to pull you out of that sometimes really fluorescent and challenging shopping atmosphere so that you can stop and be creative. So the 2 special things about this were this store did double its forecasted revenue in the first 12 months. First 2 months would have been amazing, first 12 months. The other thing that happened with this store was that it was nominated for the World Retail Awards for Best Store Design of the Year 2013. And we made it to the finals, which was ridiculous. It was our first store. We were up against Karl Lagerfeld for his concept store in Paris. We were up against Puma for their flagship store in Osaka. And it just blew our minds. But the awards were in Paris that year. We didn't turn up because it was Karl Lagerfeld, come on. And the crazy thing was we were all at home in our beds, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, phones started flashing, and someone from the ARA, the Australian Retail Association, had been there and picked up the award for us, for the world's best store design for 2013. So I guess I wanted to touch a little bit on looking forward, and my belief is that the consumer need is still going to continue to evolve, and we can look for all these different ways that we're going to explore changing that and developing with that. And we have to be able to always look for those friction points, and customers can't, as you know, can't always articulate what they are, but when we look at the analytics sitting behind the website, analysing that data really well, and then alongside what we're hearing from the customers, we can find out what those little touch points might be. Now for me, this is not where it's at. For me, this is the stuff of nightmares. This is a whole lot of cash locked up in a room. For me, it's more about this, and the vision that we have for the future is to make it as seamless and fun and exciting for her as possible to get to great shoes. So for me, that would be something like going to my room and opening the wardrobe, and in there is a hologram or a screen. And it says, "Good morning, Jodie, I hope you slept well." I'm like, "Good morning, yeah, I did." And then it says to me, "Hey, so you're speaking at the Retail Innovation Conference today. It's not raining, it's a little chilly, but you can wear whatever shoes you want. You can wear suede, it's not gonna get wet, that's cool. Probably wear something a little bit blingy because you'll be on stage, people wanna see interesting shoes." So what I've done is I've created this design. I've also had a look at, spoken to other people's wardrobes who are attending to make sure you don't match in any way. Here's the shoe I'd like to suggest to you. I'm like, great, that's perfect. Click print, it prints out in my wardrobe while I go and have a shower. And I think that constant pushing and thinking beyond anything that exists today, I think that if we can always remove those blinkers to have that kind of imagination, and then really technology is a point where it can facilitate all of that, which is super exciting. So I guess this is one of the first photos that we ever took for Shoes of Prey. It's really bad. Go have a look at the site. We have a ton of photography up there today. Unfortunately, we still use my legs more often than I would like to. But it's been a really fun journey, but I just want to say that we're very much still on that journey. And very, very last but not least, I appreciate that we're such a young company, and there are a ton of you in the room that I'm probably not going to get to speak to today and learn about, so please stay in touch. I would love to learn from you and hear about what you're doing as well, and thank you so much for having me. Do you want to do here completely? Do we have time for questions or not? We have 40 seconds for questions, so make it good. Has anyone got a question? Go ahead. So the name comes from the idea that whenever I'm walking down the street, looking at what people are wearing, looking at blogs, whatever it is, I sort of mentally snapshot it, and then I go hunting for those things. So the shoes are your prey. Hilariously, I then went on to call my cat Hunter, so it's kind of funny anyway. 13 seconds, anyone else? Oh my God. Come on, I always get asked how many shoes I own. Anyway, of course I did, of course I did. They're pretty good, right?
Any more plans to open more stores?
Definitely, yeah. So not imminently. We have a few things that we're trying to solve and test within the model, but we will do that for sure. Yeah.
Which market has been most receptive? The North American market or the Australian?
So it depends on where we are personally based. We seem to be able to generate a storm around us. So in Australia initially, but now North America has definitely taken over. And there was always a ton of organic interest here. So the markets that have had the best organic interest were Australia, America, France, Japan, and Germany. Cool. I'm down to 0, but just one more. Yes, of course. So the question was, how do we handle the return of customized product? So firstly, our return rate is very, very low. The industry average for shoes is about 33%. My assumption for why our shoe return rates are much lower is because people are designing exactly what they want rather than choosing a few pairs, trying them all on, and then sending them ones back that they don't like. When we do get returns, so it's 365 days, you can return it for any reason at all, as long as they're unworn, and we'll either give you a full refund or we will remake the shoes for you. And you can remake a different style, that's totally fine. Our refund rate, like full refund instead of remaking, is below 5%. And then the shoes that do come back to us, we either do a friends and family sale, so really worth being friends with me. I'm new to the US, recruiting friends. The other thing is we also put them into our PR kit as well, so to share and send out to magazines. And we also support charities with them as well, who like Dress for Success, so women who need those shoes to feel great to walk into that interview in. And for me, that really sits so neatly with what we believe in and what we want her to feel when she puts great shoes on. And that's it. All right, bye.